Welcome to Live Daf, your online Daf Yomi Shir.
Shalom, welcome back to today's Daf, which is Eruvin Daf Tzadik Aleph. We're on Tzadik Amud Beis, 3 lines from the bottom. We know that one may not transfer an item from his own home to the home of his friend without an Erev Chatzeres, because one's own home is his personal property, his personal space, his own rishus. And the Chacham does not allow a transfer from one rishus to the other without an Erev, which will bond them together and turn into one rishus. For concern that this might lead a person to carry from two different types of rishus, from rishus hayachid, rishus harab. Therefore, you can't carry from a bayis to a bayis without an Erev. What about from a chatzar to a chatzar, a karfif to a karfif? What about rooftops? So we had a Mishnah in the beginning of the Perek, which presented us with 3 shittas. We had Rabbi Meir, we had the Rabbanan, and Rabbi Shimon. Says the Gemara, Amar Rabbi Yehuda, Keshetimtza Laimar, when you'll analyze those shittas, you'll come to the following conclusion. L'divrei Rabbi Meir, according to Rabbi Meir's shitta, Gagan Rishus La'atzman, all rooftops are classified as one. You may transfer an item which was found on one of the rooftops at the onset of Shabbos, so it's an outdoor item. You could transfer it throughout all the rooftops of the city, even if it's your friend's rooftop, because these areas are not really earmarked for personal use. These areas aren't so frequently used as one's home, and as such, we don't really relate to it as your personal space. Therefore, you could transfer from one to the other. It's not considered to be changing from one rishus to the other. Such an extreme, significant change. So according to Rabbi Meir, all rooftops are considered to be one rishus. Likewise, chatzeres rishus la'atzman. All chatzeres, all these front yards, are classified as one, and you could carry from one to the other. Karfifos rishus la'atzman. Likewise, these outdoor storage areas, which are obviously enclosed, rishus hayachid, are considered to be in a class of their own, and you could transfer from one karfif to the other, even if it's from your karfif to your friend's karfif. Let's take a look at Rashi inside. On Tzadik Amud Beis on the bottom, 2 lines from the bottom, it says Rashi, Keshetim Tzelaymar, Keshetamad al Seif Datan, when you analyze the true meaning of their shittas, Zeu Gmar Devreim, this will be the conclusion of the shittas. L'divrei Meir, Gagan Rishus La'atzman, U'metaltlan the Gagan Shel Eruvin, the Gagan Shel Shimon. We'll have to be metaltal from Ruven's rooftop to Shimon's rooftop. V'chatzeres Rishus La'atzman, U'metaltlan the Chatzeres Shel Ruven, Chatzeres Shel Shimon. You can carry from one chatzar to the other. Kelim Sheshafse B'chatzar. We're speaking about a kli which is a chatzar kli, meaning it was there during Ben Hashmashis. It was not inside the home, in which case we consider it as though it's been earmarked for very personal use, intense household domestic use. And in that case, you can't transfer it to your friend's chatzar, but that's considered to be a change of rishuyas. But a kli which was in the chatzar, it was an outdoor kli that can be transferred from one chatzar to the other. V'chein mechatzer shel rabim, v'chatzer shel rabim. Likewise, you can take from a joint chatzar to another joint chatzar. That's okay. So rooftops are one, chatzeres are one. Continues Rashi up on top. V'karfifos rishus la'atzman. Likewise, these storage areas are considered to be in a class on their own. Even if this karfif belongs to Reuven, this one to Shimon, you can carry it from one to the other. So once again, according to Rabbi Meir, Gagin are one, Chatzeres are one, all karfifos are one. Now, what about transferring from one to the other, from a gag to a chatzer or a karfif? So Rashi explains that would not be allowed according to Rabbi Meir, because you may recall, we learned yesterday, there's a gzeira. If you're going to transfer from a higher place to a lower place, or vice versa, it might lead a person to do the same in Rishus Harabim, take the package from the street below up onto the tail, this mound in Rishus Harabim, which is a Rishus Hayachid, which is considered to be Haitzah. He's taking something from Rishus Harabim up to Rishus Hayachid. So on account of that concern, Chachamim, Rabbi Meir does not allow transferring something, even if it's from one Rishus Hayachid to the other, if they're on different levels. They're 10 tfachim apart. So that explains why you can't take from a rooftop, which is high above the chatzar or the karfif, you can't transfer from one to the other. So that answers that question. Gag cannot transfer to Chatzer or Karfif. And likewise explains Rashi that a Karfif is really its own unique type of place. It's an outdoor storage area. It's not like a Chatzer which is servicing the home. And it's different. It's different than the courtyards. It's just a storage area. So it's not considered to be, doesn't have any residential elements whatsoever. Therefore, says Rashi, you cannot transfer from the Chatzer to a Karfif. So bottom line is, according to a mayor, Gagin are a class on their own, Chatzeris on their own, and Karfifas on their own. Continues the Gemara on the first line on top. L'divrei Chachamim. What about the Shittas Chachamim? Gagin v'Chatzeris u'shesachas. Rooftops and courtyards are considered to be one and the same, because they don't hold of that Gzeira of Rameir, that differences in level should play a role. So even if the Gag is up high and the Chatzer is down low, you could transfer from one to the other. However, Karfifas is just achasen. Karfifas are considered to be in the class on their own. They're categorized as their own separate type of rishus, outdoor storage areas, and you cannot transfer from the rooftops and the chatzeros to the Karfifas. So essentially, Chacham and Rameir are basically the same shita, but Rameir adds an element of the Gzeira. You can't transfer from one level to the other. And likewise, the Chachamim add that when it comes to rooftops, this is not brought in the Gemara here, but we had in the Mishnah, that rooftops are considered to be an extension, so to speak, of the house below. So just as you can't transfer from one base to the other, your unique personal space to your friend's unique personal space, the Gagin as well assume that same status, and you can't transfer from your rooftop to your friend's rooftop. So these are the two differences between Rameir and Chachamim. So again, according to Rameir, rooftops are considered to be one and the same entity, and you can carry from one to the other without any concern. Chatzeris likewise are considered to be one entity. Karfifas, one entity. Now, regarding rooftops, you can transfer from one to the other without any concern. However, from that rooftop you cannot transfer down to the Chatzer or the Karfif because of that Gzeira, the differences in level. According to Chachamim, a very similar shita, they hold that a Karfif is considered to be a separate type of area, just like Rameir, and the Chatzeris, and you can transfer throughout all the Karfifas, you can transfer throughout all the Chatzeris, and the Gagin, they hold, each Gag is considered to be a separate entity, because it's considered to be part of the extension of the household below, so you cannot transfer one Gag to the other. So that's the Shitz Rameir and Shitz Chachamim. What about Reb Shimon? L'divrei Reb Shimon, he's the most lenient of all. Kulan Rishus Achasein, all three things, Gagin, Chatzeris, and Karfifas, are considered to be one and the same entity. They fall under the same category of these outdoor, non-residential areas, and any Kli, any outdoor Kli that is, can be transferred freely throughout rooftops, courtyards, and Karfifas. Let's see Rashi inside here. So take a look at the bottom where the lines widen. So it's going to be the third wide line. Says Rashi, L'divrei Reb Shimon, Kulan Rishus Achas. The Leitem. What's he coming to say? What's Rabbi Yehuda here coming to say? That according to Reb Shimon, it's all the same. The Leitem, you shouldn't think, Hi, the Reb Shimon, that Reb Shimon said in our Mishnah, Echad Gagos, Vechad Chatzeris, Vechad Karfifos. When he made that statement, what he meant to say was, Kol Chada V'Chada Shusaban Peinavshei Mashvilo. He considers each category as a separate class. Gagos is one, Chatzeris are separate, and Karfifos are separate. Gagos Latzman, Chatzeris Latzman, Karfifos Latzman, and you can't transfer from one to the other. Perhaps that's the Pshan Reb Shimon. So the Gemara tells us, no, that's not so. The Hosvar, the Ramei Isle. This is Ramei Shita. Ramei holds that each one is considered to be separate. Gagin are in a class of their own, Chatzeris on their own, Karfifas on their own. You can't transfer from one to the other. Why? Once again, because the Gagin are up high, and you can't take something from there down to the Chatzer and the Karfif below. On another note, the Karfifas are considered to be a separate type of area, not residential, not connected to the homes. Therefore, you can't transfer from the other areas to the Karfifas. That's Rameir Shita. Aval Reb Shimon Kulu Chadu Shusa Mashilu. according to Reb Shimon, all these areas are considered to be one and the same entity. Hachi Shmei Lei Rabbi Yehuda. So Rabbi Yehuda heard this from his, from others, from his Rebbeim, etc. This was the way he was makabel as a pshat in Reb Shimon. Ubraisa Masayale. And in fact, the Braisa, which we're going to bring later, is actually going to support Rabbi Yehuda's approach to Reb Shimon's shita. The Sani Kavasei L'Kamon. We have a Braisa which supports this. Braisa says, "Hayinu Malin." According to Reb Shimon, we would bring up the shemen, valuntis, the oil, the towel, megag legag, megag lechotzim, mechatz lechotzim, mechatz lekarfiv, throughout all these areas. So we see that gag, chotz, and karfiv, according to Reb Shimon, are classified all under one umbrella. They're all considered to be the same type of area, same category of outdoor, non-residential areas, and you can take anything from one place to the other without an erev. Continues the Gemara. Tanika v'sei de Rav, Tanika v'sei de Rav Yehuda. We're going to bring this raya that Rashi quoted for us as a raya to Rabbi Yehuda's approach, that according to Reb Shimon, indeed, all these areas are regarded as one and the same. And the Tanika v'sei de Rav means, you may recall back in the beginning of the parak, that according to Shittas Chachamim, the rooftops are considered to be separate entities, because they're like part of the homes below. You can't transfer one rooftop to the other. And based on that, Rav told us the rooftops are considered to be karmelis, because each roof is considered to be open and exposed to his neighbor's roof, to which he can't transfer. So it's a makom, it's nifras l'makom asala. And therefore each roof is considered to be like exposed and unenclosed, like a karmelis. And you're limited to 4 amas. So we're going to bring a raya, Tanik v'sei de Rav, to that halach. Explains the Gemara. Tanik v'sei de Rav, we have a raya from a Braisa which supports Rav. Called Gaga Seir Rishus Achasen. This is Ramei Shita, who says all rooftops are considered to be Ronishus. However, if there's a discrepancy in height, then you must be careful, because of the Gzeira that we mentioned. You can't bring up and down from the rooftops to the Chatzar, because of that Gzeira. A kli that was shoybis in the Chatzar, so since it originated in the Chatzar during Ban Hashmashes, it was earmarked and established as an outdoor kli. You can carry it throughout the Chatzar, and also from one Chatzar to the other, without an Erev. Begagan, a kli which was found in one of the rooftops, mutal taltlan begagan. It can be transferred throughout all the rooftops. Ubuvat, provided shelo yehi gagavoy yud oinamech yud, that there's no height discrepancy, a 10 height discrepancy between one roof and the other, because then the Gzeira would apply. Divrei Meir. So according to Meir, all roofs are one, all chatzeres are one, provided there's no difference in height. Each rooftop is its own rishus. And as a result, you can only carry within 4 amas, because each rooftop is exposed to his neighbor, to which he can't carry, and it's considered to be breached and open lamakim asrei, as the Nova Karmelis. You're limited to 4 amas. There's a right to Rav's shita. Continues the Gemara. Tanika v'sei Rabbi Yehuda. We have a Braisa which supports Rabbi Yehuda's description of Reb Shimon's shita, that all these outdoor areas are considered to be connected, classified as the same type of area, same type of status, and you can transfer freely throughout. Says the Braisa. When we were learning Torah by Reb Shimon Bar Yochai in the town of Tekoya, we would bring up the shemen, the oil, valuntis, and the towel when we went to bathe. So how would we carry it on Shabbos? We would take a circular route. Migag legag, we would carry from one roof to the other. Migag lechatzer, from there to a chatzar. Mechatzer lechatzer to the next chatzar. Mechatzer lekarfev, from there to a karfev. Mekarfev lekarfev. Ad sheyinu magiin etzel hamayim. So we went and carried throughout all these areas, all these non-residential areas, without an erev, until we reached the Mayan, the spring, sheyinu reichsim boy, where we would bathe. So it's very clear that according to Reb Shimon, the gag, the chatzar, the karfev, all regarded as one and the same rishus. Continues the Braisa. Rabbi Yehuda, I have another raya. Maasa b'shas hasakana vayinu malin sefer Torah. This was an incident that happened during the time of persecution, they wouldn't let them read the Sefer Torah, so we had to find a hidden place. We had to read it clandestinely. So we would bring the Sefer Torah up, mechatzer legag, or megag lechatzer, mechatzer lekarfef. We would take it from one place to the other until we got to our secret location, likris boy, in order to read the Torah. So from here as well, we see that gag, chatzer, and karfef are regarded as one and the same type of rishus. You can carry throughout these areas without an erev. Amar lois, the Chacham responded, ein shas asakana raya. You can't bring a raya from a time of persecution. As the Mepharshim explain, perhaps the Chacham made an exception, so that we don't abandon, we don't lose the whole concept of reading in Sefer Torah. So it's an exception. But in ordinary times, we're not meant to perhaps carry throughout all these areas. And according to Shittas Chacham, you can carry from a gag chatzah to a karfef, because a karfef is considered like a different type of area. It's classified as a totally non-residential area, as opposed to a gag and a karfef, which are somewhat connected to the home. So you can make a raya from the case of the Sefer Torah. Okay, before we proceed, let's just take a quick summary. We have three shittas regarding carrying things around without an erev. So let's start with bayis l'bayis. Of course, you can't carry from one home to the other. What about gagen, chatzeres, karfifos? We have three shittas. We have first the Rameh and the Chacham, who are basically the same shita. They say you can carry throughout the that's how Rameh. He says all the gagen are considered like one, all the chatzeres like one, all the karfifos like one. What about taking from a gag to a chatzer and a karfif? You can't. The simple reason is because the gag is on a different level. You cannot transfer from one level to the other, because it might lead a person to do the same in Rosh Hashanah, meaning putting from the street below up into the post, which is 10 tefachim above, which is Rosh Hashanah. Therefore, Meir does not allow transfer from one level to the other. And regarding transferring from any of these areas to a karfif, that also is not allowed, because a karfif is a different type of area, a different shem, a different name, a different classification. It's a storage area, it's a totally non-residential area, therefore you cannot transfer from a gag and chatzah to a karfif, because it's like a shini rishus. It's like taking from one type of rishus to the other, which is reminiscent to carrying from rishus to rishus rabbin. That's Shittas Rameh. So he holds with the Gzeir regarding the different levels, and he allows throughout all the rooftops. Chacham are very similar, except that they are machmer when it comes to rooftops. You can't carry from one rooftop to the other, because the rooftop is connected to the home below. So that's a chumrah of the Chacham over at Meir, and they have a kula. They don't hold that Gzeir. So differences in level are irrelevant. So you can carry from the gag to the chatzar and back without a concern. And they agree that a karfif is in a class of its own. It's a totally non-residential area, and therefore they also don't allow carrying from the gag chatzar to the karfif. So we have Rameh and Rabbanan, now we have Rav Shimon, who regards all these areas as one and the same, and allows free transfer throughout the gagin, the chatzeres, and the karfifos. And just one point to mention, we are speaking about kelim which are not household kelim, which were not actually in the homes during Ben Hashmashis, and earmarked for personal domestic use. So you have kelim which were outdoors, either in the gag or the chatz and the karfif. And regarding that kli is our discussion. That leads us to the next gemara. Reb Shimon Omer echad gagin, you can transfer freely throughout all these areas. Amarav, halacha Reb Shimon, the halacha is like Reb Shimon. V'hu shaloi irvu. You know, when we allow a person to transfer from, let's say, from one chatzah to the other without an erev, that's only provided that the people living in the chatzah didn't establish an erev amongst themselves. What does that erev allow them to do? To transfer their household items, the klei habayis, into the chatzah. So only if they did not make an erev, in which case they cannot transfer their personal household items into the chatzah, then we allow transfer from one chatzah to the other, the klei chatzah, the kelim which were not in the homes, the kelim which were in the chatzah during Hashmashas, then we allow that to be transferred from one chatzah to the other. Avol irvu loy, but if the people living in the chatzah made an erev, amongst themselves, which allows them to carry out their household items into the chutzner. In this case, we do not allow transfer from one chutzner to the other, even the klei chutzner. Why? The gazrinan were concerned dilma asalav puke mani debatim chutzner. Perhaps, since in this case we have household items which are found in the chutzner, just as he's going to transfer the klei chutzner next door, perhaps erroneously he's going to transfer his household items as well, and that can't be done because klei habayis, which originated in the person's home during Ben Hashmoshes, became earmarked for his personal use. That can't be transferred to the chutzner next door without an erev chatzeris, because he's taking something from his personal rishus and bringing it over to not his chutzner, but to his neighboring chutzner. That can't be done. Let's see Rashi inside. 5 lines from the bottom. So this is Rav speaking. V'hu shalai irvu, says Rashi. B'nei chatzeris kol achas la'atzmo. We only allow transfer from one chutzner to the other. We're speaking about the klei hachatzer, right? The keli that was in the chutzner during Hashmoshes. We only allow that to be transferred to the chutzner next door without an erev. Only when the residents of this chutzner haven't made an erev, to allow themselves to transfer throughout the chutzner, and to bring their household items into the chutzner. Because if there's no erev, then the household items are not going to be found in the chutzner. For like a lemigzer, there's no reason for concern for gzera isharis lahitzi kelim sheshav sebazu lachnis in lechaverta. There's no concern that if you allow one to transfer the klei chutzner from this chutzner to the chutzner next door, it's going to lead to confusion. That perhaps it's going to lead to a person transferring also his household items to the chutzner next door, because there's no household items to be found in the chutzner. There's no erev which allows them to bring out their kelim to their chutzner. So it's only over there that Reb Shimon allows free transfer from one chutzner to the other. Aval erevu, says Rashi, kol chutzner la'atzma. But if each chutzner respectively made its own personal erev, in which case they're going to bring their kelim out into their chutzner. So they made their own erev. Fully erev beis hachatzeres yachad. But the two chatzeres didn't join together in erev. Also tatum mezulazu. I feel klei chatzer. In this case, you can't transfer even klei chatzer from one to the other. Why? There's there's reason for confusion here. That the kivan the shrichi mani debatim b'chatzer, since the household items are present in the chatzer, Gazrin were concerned dilma asila puki mani debatim shebachatzazu l'chatzazu. We're concerned that just as he's going to transfer his klei chatzer to the chutzner next door, which he can, he's going to also bring along his household items to the chutzner next door, and that he can't do. Reb Shimon agrees he can't do that. The Tani Mishnah clearly says, this allowance to transfer from one chutzner to the other only applies to a kli which originated in the chutzner during the Hashmoshes. It was earmarked for outdoor use. It wasn't designated for very intense personal use. But household items which were in the home during the Hashmoshes, klei habayis, although you can take them out to your chutzner if you have an erev, but you can't take them to the chutzner next door, because that's considered to be a transfer of reshuyas. You're taking your own personal item, which was designated for personal use, and bringing it to your friend's chutzner. You can't do that with an erev. Therefore, says Rav, when there's any reason to be concerned that's going to happen, we don't allow transfer from one chutzner to the other without an erev. That's Rav Shit. Ushmuel Amar, says the Gemara, he disagrees. He says, Bein irvu, bein shalai irvu, whether or not they made an erev chatzeris, whether or not the household items are going to be transferred into their chutzner, you can go ahead and transfer the klei chutzner from your chutzner to your neighbor's chutzner without an erev. V'chein Rabbi Yehuda says likewise, mi lachshach, who whispered to you, who told you to draw this line? No, we don't differentiate bein irvu, bein shalei irvu, whether or not there was an erev, it's allowed. Why is that? Why aren't they concerned about the gzera? Explains the Ritva. Generally speaking, household items, domestic items, they're discernible, they're identifiable, and they're different than outdoor items, chutzner items. So generally speaking, there's no room for concern. He's going to be careful to only transfer his chutzner outdoor items to the chutzner next door, and leave his household items behind. Continues the Gemara. Maske floor of Chizd. Chizd asked the Kash. L'shmuel or Rabbi Yechanan, according to their shittas, that even when there was an Eruv in this Chatzah, which allowed transfer from the household items into the Chatzah, you can go ahead, and although you can't transfer those items to the Chatzah next door, but your Klei HaChatzar you can. So according to them, it's going to create a peculiar situation. Yoimru, people will take a look and say, Shnei Kelim Chatzar Achas. Look, there are two Kelim in this Chatzar. One is a Klei HaChatzar, one is a Klei HaBayis. Zeh Mutar v'zeh Aser. This can be transferred next door, and this can't. It's going to lead to confusion and to mistakes. And perhaps people will erroneously conclude you can transfer anything next door. Why aren't they concerned for this Gzera? Says the Gemara, Rav Shimon Tamei. The answer is that Rav Shimon follows his own Shita. He's not concerned about confusing things and transferring the wrong items. What do we find? The Rav Shimon does not have that concern. The Snan, Rav Shimon, Lamada Verdoima. The Mishnah there is describing a specific halacha. Rav Shimon says, you know what it's similar to? To the following case. L'shalish chatzeres ha'psuchas l'zu. U'psuchas Rishus Rabim. You have a Rishus Rabim, and you have it lined with 3 chatzeres. They all have access, independent access to Rishus Rabim, and they all have access to each other as well. And what happened? V'irvu shtei chitzonos in emtzois. The 3 chatzeres, you have 3 chatzeres, and the 2 outer ones made an eruv with the middle one. They didn't make an eruv with each other. The 2 chitzonos are still disconnected. They connected merely with the middle one. So what happens? He muteris iman. The middle chatzar can interact with them, with the chatzar on the right, the chatzar on the left. Vei muteris iman, and they can interact with it. They can transfer back and forth. Ubeiza chitzonos asurin zumzu. However, the 2 chitzonos who never connected with each other, they cannot transfer a kli to one another. So although they can transfer to the middle one, they have a one-sided relationship with him. They have it's like a split eruv. He can associate with them, but they can't associate with each other. That's fine. So now we have a situation where the fellow on the right will transfer from his chatzar to the middle one, and the middle chatzar can transfer his keli to the chatzar to his left, right? But he can't transfer the kli which was brought over from the chatzar on the right. That must remain right there, because that can't go all the way to the other side. And perhaps there's room for confusion here. He's transferring his kli to the chatzar on the other side, but he can't transfer the kli which arrived from the chatzar to his right. V'lei gazar. And we see that Reb Shimon doesn't apply an exer. He's not concerned. Dilma asela fuke mani da chatzar la chatzar. He's not concerned that when the fellow in the middle chatzar is going to transfer, let's say, to the chatzar on his left, that perhaps he's going to erroneously also transfer a kalim which arrived to his chatzar from the chatzar on the right, which are not allowed to be transferred all the way to the left. So you see, Reb Shimon does not hold of this gzera. In our case as well, we're not chayshish. We allow transfer from one chatzar to the other. In a typical case, we have 2 chatzeres next to each other. We can transfer the klei chatzar to the chatzar next door without an eruv. Although there are klei habayis present in the chatzar, we're not concerned that if you allow transfer this kli, he's going to transfer the domestic kli as well. Dilma asila fuki mani debatam the chatzar. Perhaps this will lead him to transfer the household items to the chatzar next door. So you have a raya that Reb Shimon does not apply this gzera. Now it's going to be a kasha on Rav. Rav holds that there is a gzera in our case. So how does he explain the Mishnah there? That Reb Shimon himself doesn't seem to be too concerned about mixing things up. So the Gon Yaakov says that it's a musad lo shchicha. That whole configuration with 3 chatzeres making those half eruv is not something which is common. And something which is not common, Chacham did not apply gzera. As opposed to our case, where you have 2 chatzeres next to each other, which is a very typical case. A gzera would apply. Chazon Ish says there's a big difference between our case, where a person is taking his own klei chatz, his own utensils, and bringing it next door. So if you allow this to happen, perhaps he's going to also bring along his household items. As opposed to the case of the 3 chatzeres, where, what happened? You have 1, 2, 3. The two outer ones made an eruv with the middle one. The two outer ones did not make an eruv with each other. So let's say the chatzar on the right is going to bring his kli to the middle chatzar. And the fellow living in the middle chatzar, he's going to take his own kli and bring it to the chatzar to the left. Says the Chazon Ish, there's no concern that he's going to bring along the kli which came from the other chatzar. It's not his kli. Why is he transferring somebody else's kli? So there's less room for the gzeira, less room for concern. Therefore, Reb Shimon was not concerned that perhaps he's going to do that. He's not geyser. As opposed to our case, where he's transferring his own kli chatzar from his chatzar to the next door chatzar. We're concerned if he does that, perhaps he'll bring along his kli abayis as well to the next chatzar. And therefore, Rab says we can't allow it on account of that concern. Continues the Gemara. Masr of Sheshes. So if Sheshes asked the kasha to prove that Reb Shimon allows transfer from chatzar to chatzar, even in a case where the people in this chatzar made an eruv with each other, which allows them to bring out their klei habayis into chatzar. So although the klei habayis are present, we're not concerned that he's going to bring those klei habayis to the chatzar next door as well. What's the raya? It says Rav Sheshes, I've arrived from our very Mishnah, the Mishnah in the beginning of our parak. Reb Shimon Omer, echad gakos, echad chatzeres, echad kafifos. Whether rooftops, chatzeres or kafifos, they're all considered to be rishus achasein, they're classified as one and the same rishus, which allows free transfer throughout. And what does this apply to? Lekalim sheshavsa b'seicha. Only for the kalim which were present in one of these outdoor areas during Manashmashis. However, it doesn't apply to a kli habayis. V'loy lekalim sheshavsa b'seicha habayis. Now, the Mishnah indicates that there are kli habayis sitting out here. Hashem is telling us, look, you could transfer from one chatzah to the other a kli chatzah, but not a kli habayis. How did the kli habayis get here? How did it come out to the chatzar? Apparently there was an eruv in this chatzar which allowed transfer from the house to the chatzar. Yamas b'shleima, the irvu. So it's all good and well if you say that. Reb Shimon's halacha applies even in the case where there was an eruv. That's how you found the household items in the chatzar. They're present in the chatzar because there was an eruv. Eli amas b'shlei irvu. However, if you say there was no eruv, it's only in that case that Reb Shimon allows. How are you going to find mani debatim b'chatzar, household items in the chatzar? So it's pretty clear from the Mishnah that there was an eruv in this chatzar, and they transferred their household goods into the chatzar, and even over there Reb Shimon allows. It doesn't apply to gzeira. Who ma'isivla v'u mefarkel? Reb Sheshes, who asked this kasha, himself answered, "Becomes of a sudra." We're not speaking about standard household utensils, which were carried out into the chatzar because of the eruv. There was no eruv in this chatzar. How does he have household goods in the chatzar? The kumsa is a cap, the sudra, a scarf. So he wore them into the chatzar. Let's take a look at Rashi, all the way on the bottom line. The kumsa of a sudra, we're talking about this cap, the scarf, sheshavs of sechabayis, who were present, which were present in the home during Ben Hashmashis, household goods. V'yitzian l'chatzar derech malbush. He simply brought it out to the chatzar because he was wearing them. You're allowed to carry things out to the chatzar even without an eruv. They're bottled to the person. So he has these caps sitting in the chatzar, and Reb Shimon comes and tells us, look, if you like to transfer from your chatzar to your next door chatzar without an eruv, you can do so, provided you're speaking about kli chatzar, something which was in the chatzar during Hashmashas, but not these caps and these scarves which originated in the home during Hashmashas, and happened to be present in the chatzar because he carried it out derech malbush. So the bottom line is, we're speaking about perhaps that there was no eruv here. In accordance with Rav Shita, that Reb Shimon will only allow transfer when there is no eruv, in which case there's no concern about the household items being found in the chatzar, because otherwise there's concern of confusion here. If you allow the klei chatzar to be transferred next door, perhaps that will lead him to transfer even the klei habayis, and that can't be done even according to Reb Shimon. Continues the Gemara. Toshma, I'm going to bring a raya from a brisa to the Shita that Shita of Rav, that the heter only applies when there's no concern of the klei habayis found in the chatzar, meaning only when there's no eruv. The brisa says like this: Toshma anshe chatzar v'anshe merpeses sheshachav le'eruv. have people living down the chutzner, people living up in the merpeses, which is this porch, to which there are apartments open. So they walk out on the porch, they come down to the merpeses. So the merpeses and the chutzner are really two separate, distinct entities. It's like two chatzeres. Now, we're speaking that the residents, both groups made their own separate Erev, but they didn't join together in one Erev. Meaning the chutzner and merpeses didn't join together. So that's what the Brisa means, Sheshachav L'Eruv. They didn't join together in one single Erev. So the Anshe Chutzner can carry in the chutzner, the merpeses, but they can't transfer one to the other. So what belongs to who? Says the Brisa, Kol Shegava Yutfachim Merpeses. If you have a post, for instance, which is 10 tefachim high and is close to the porch, so it's easily accessible to them, more easily accessible to them than to the Anshe Chutzner, so we grant it to them. The merpeses. It's considered to be like it's exclusively earmarked for them. They can use it and not the Anshe Chutzner. Pachas mikam l'chutzner. If it's lower than 10 tefachim, then it's not more convenient for them than for the Anshe Chutzner. So now it belongs to both of them, as Rashi explains. Since it's an area which they both access, they can't use it without an Erev. When is this restriction applied, that they can't transfer from the chutzner to merpeses and back? When do we say that even a kli chutzner, something which was in the chutzner during Mashmaz, cannot be transferred from the chutzner to the other chutzner, in this case the merpeses? When is that said? Shahayu elu shel rabim, ve'elu shel rabim. When the chutzner and merpeses were inhabited by many people, ve'irvu el atzman, and each area made their own separate, respective Erev, their own independent Erev, which allows them to carry the household goods into their areas. So then we're concerned that since the chutzner features household items as well, we're concerned that if we allow transfer of klei chutzner from one to the other, which is allowed, perhaps that will lead the person to transfer the klei bayis as well, because their klei bayis are to be found in the chutzner, because they made an Erev amongst themselves. Or the same thing would apply if they're occupied by individuals. You have Eruvin living on the merpeses, Shimon on the chutzner. So Eruvin doesn't need an Erev to carry throughout his area. Likewise, Shimon doesn't need. So he's going to transfer his household items into his chutzner. So since they are present in the chutzner, we're concerned that if we allow transfer from one chutzner to the other, regarding the klei chutzner, it might lead to transfer of klei bayis as well. So that's in these cases where the klei chutzner, where the chutzner features klei bayis as well. However, if the chutzner and the merpeses were inhabited by multitudes who need an Erev to allow them to bring out their klei bayis, and they forgot to make an Erev. Now in this case, there's no concern whatsoever, because they are prevented from bringing their klei bayis into the chutzner. So there will be no klei bayis present in the chutzner at all. In this case, we have no concerns. We would allow free transfer from one area to the other, from the chutzner to merpeses and back, even without an Erev. Says the Brisa, if that's the case, if there's no concern, then indeed, Gag, V'chutzner, V'achsadr, merpeses, all these types of outdoor areas, the rooftop, the chutzner, the achsadr is this covered, this terrace, this unenclosed area, which is also considered to be like a non-residential area, merpeses, this porch, Kulam Rishas Achasein, they're all grouped together and put in the same class, which allows free transfer throughout. Says the Gemara, we have a right to Rav. Tamid L'Irvu. We only group them together because there was no Erev. In which case there was no klei bayis sitting outside. Ha-Irvu. But otherwise, if they would have made an Erev amongst themselves, which allows them to bring their klei bayis out into the chutzner, in which case it carries a concern that if you allow carrying from one chutzner to the other, he might also carry the klei bayis next door. Ha-Irvu, you can't transfer freely. And this is a raya to Rav Shita. Says the Gemara, no. Homami Rabbanani. This Brisa is Shitas Rabbanan. Rabbanan are concerned about erroneous transfers. How do we know that? So Rashi brings that the case over there with the three chatzeros, right, which made a partial Erev, the outer ones with the inner ones. So Reb Shimon says, you can transfer, we're not concerned about taking out the wrong thing. Rabbanan disagree. Rabbanan say, no, you can't do that because we're concerned. We have a gzera that if you allow transferring one type of item, somehow he might transfer the keli from one chatzar chitzayin all the way to the other one. So we see the Chacham are concerned about transferring the wrong kelim. So indeed, this brisa, which reflects that concern, reflects Shittas Chachamim. Our discussion, meaning Shmuel Rabbi Yehuda, who allowed, even when the Klei Habayis are found in the Chatzar, they didn't hold the Gzera. They were working with Shittas Reb Shimon. Reb Shimon does not hold the Gzera. Says Modei Kinami, I'll prove it to you from the wording of the Mishnah, that the brisa that we're speaking about Shittas Chachamim. Because when the brisa gave us that list of all these similarly classified areas, Gag, Chatzar, Sadmer, Peses. If you pay attention, we didn't mention Karfif or Mavi. The economic, the tonic Karfif or Mavi. Whose shita is that? It's a Chachamim. You may recall earlier we mentioned that according to Chachamim, a Karfif is a separate area. It's classified as non-residential. It's different than a Gag and a Chatzar. You can't transfer from a Gag and Chatzar to a Karfif, which is like a Shini Rishus. And the Gemara over here adds Mavi as well. Mavi is this alleyway, it's not connected to the home. So according to Chachamim, you can't transfer without an Eruv from one of these other areas to the Karfif or to the Mavi. Whereas Reb Shimon says they're all equal and the same. Gag, Chatzar, Karfif, and Mavi, all considered to be non-residential, unroofed, outdoor areas, which allows for free transfer. So apparently this brisa, which omits Karfif and Mavi, is Shittas Chachamim. And indeed the Chachamim hold of this Gzera. But we're speaking about Shittas Reb Shimon, who doesn't hold of a Gzera of perhaps a person will mix things up and bring the Klei Habayis to where it's not meant to. Shma Mina. So we have a raya from the wording of the brisa that it's the Shittas Rabban. Tashma. Let's bring another raya from the following brisa that when there's an Eruv in a Chatzar and there's a concern, since the Klei Habayis are found in the Chatzar, that Reb Shimon would not allow transfer from one Chatzar to the other, because it might lead him to bring the Klei Habayis as well to the next door Chatzar. Says the Brisa, Toshma Chomesh Chatzeres Apsuchos Lezu Apsuchos Lamavi. Let's say you have a Mavi, this alleyway which is lined with 5 Chatzeres who have access to the Mavi. Each one has his own independent Pesach to the Mavi, and they're all also open to each other. And they all forgot to make an Eruv. So they didn't even make an Eruv amongst themselves. So each Chatzar on its own can't transfer his Klei Habayis into his Chatzar. So in this case, the Chatzar does not have any Klei Habayis in it. So you can't transfer in and out from the Chatzar to the Mavi, because they didn't make a Shittim Mavois. However, v'kelim sheshafsa b'chatzar, mutar l'talton b'chatzar. A kli which was shoyvis in this chatzar, meaning it was in the chatzar during Ben Hashmashas. It wasn't earmarked for domestic use. It was a kli chatzar that can be transferred throughout the chatzar, not only throughout his chatzar but throughout all the chatzeros. You can take it from one chatzar to the other. Ubemavi asa. But in the Mavi, you can't carry. Okay. Reb Shimon Mater. Reb Shimon says you can carry even from the Chatzar to the Mavi. So that's the difference between Tanakama and Reb Shimon. Tanakama says you can take a Kli Chatzar from one Chatzar to the other, but not into the Mavi, because the Mavi is considered to be completely non-residential. It's an alleyway. So this is Chacham hold that a Mavi, a Karfif are classified differently than a Chatzar. Whereas Reb Shimon says, Chatzar, Mavi, it's all the same. Shaya Reb Shimon Aimer, Kol Zman Shein Shel Rabim. Whenever we have a case of lots of people here, V'shachachu v'lo Eruv, and they forgot to make an Eruv. So at this point we figure Shachach lo Eruv means that they didn't even make their own personal Eruv. Meaning each Chatzar doesn't have its own Eruv, so there are no Klei Habayis sitting in the Chatzar. In this case, we say there's no concerns, and the Klei HaChatzar the outdoor kelim can be transferred throughout all those outdoor areas, including karfif and mavi. Gag v'chatzer v'achsadru v'peses v'karfif u'mavi kulan rishus achasein. So this is Shizr of Shimon, that all these outdoor areas are classified as one and the same. Whereas Tanakama says, I agree when it comes to Gag, Chatzar, but not Mavi. Mavi, Karfif are detached from the homes and are regarded in a class of their own. Says the Gemara, okay, Tama the Irvo. Tama the Irvo. It's pretty obvious from the Brisa. This whole allowance, this allowance to carry from one Chatzar to the other, is only when there was no Erev in that Chatzar, in which case there was no Klei Bayis there, and there's no concern of Gzir. However, if they would have made an Erev in the Chatzar, in which case the Klei Bayis are outside, then we don't allow transfer to the next Chatzar because of the Gzera. It's very clear. The Brisa says that there was no Erev. V'lo Erevu. V'shachulum lo Erevu. So there's a right to Rav that we apply a Gzera when there's concern of Klei Bayis being transferred erroneously. Says one, no, certainly we're speaking that the Chatzeros made their own personal Erevs. Each Chatzar independently has an Erev, in which case the Klei Bayis are outside. And even then, we allow transfer of Kli Chatzar from one to the other. There's no concern of confusion. My lo Irvu. What does the Brisa mean, lo Irvu? Lo Irvu Chatzeros b'adi adodi. The Chatzeros didn't connect to each other with an Erev. That's what the Brisa is speaking about. Ha Chatzar b'atim Irvu. But certainly, the Chatzar with its own homes contained therein made an Erev. In which case, there are Klei Bayis sitting in the Chatzar. And even then, we're not concerned. Says the Gemara, V'loi Irvu Ktani. The Brisa says, Loi Irvu, which is a pretty strong statement. There was no Erev whatsoever. So how can you say we're speaking that there was an Erev within the Chatzar? My Loi Irvu, Loi Nishtatfu. Sometimes Erev and Shittiv go hand in hand, they're interchangeable. So the Brisa is simply referring to the Erev Shittim of voice. Meaning, certainly they made an Erev inside their Chatzar, and they transfer their Klei Bayis into the Chatzar. So although the Chatzar has Klei Bayis, we're not concerned if we allow transfer from one Chatzar to the other regarding the Klei Chatzar. What does the Brisa mean when it says there was no Erev? There was no Shittiv Mavois. So although the Chatzeros didn't make a Shittiv Mavois, and they can't transfer to the Mavoi, and even so, Reb Shimon says that they're allowed to transfer in the Mavoi, in accordance with his Shita, that all outdoor areas are classified together as one category. Another pshat. Reb Shimon l'devreim d'Rabbanan kamalu. When Reb Shimon says v'shachav le'irvu, he is relating to Shita's Chachamim. Meaning like this. Lididi, according to my Shita, Reb Shimon himself, he holds Leishna Irvu, Leishna Lo Irvu. Doesn't make a difference whether or not the Chatzar made it an Erev or not. In either case, you can transfer from one place to the other, from one Chatzar to the other, if you're transferring Klei Chatzar, because there's no concern of Gzera. Ela Lididchu, however, according to your Shita, meaning according to the Chacham, Oidu Limias, why don't you at least agree with me, when the Chatzar didn't make an Erev? So, the people are not going to be carrying out their household goods into the Chatzar. There's no concern of confusion. At least over there you should agree to me, Rishus Achasi, that everything is considered to be one Rishus. And you should allow transferring from the Chatzar to the next Chatzar to the Mavi as well. Why don't you agree with me that that's allowed? So, when Rav Shimon says, V'shachal le'irvu, indeed, he meant there was no Erev Chatzeros, as the Gemara figured earlier. But this is not a reflection of his own Shita. He himself holds even when there was an Erev, and there are Klei Bayis sitting in the Chatzar, there's no concern. When he said V'lo Irvu, he was merely relating to Chacham. At least in the case of Lo Irvu, when the Klei Bayis are not found in the Chatzar. Why are you disagreeing with me? At least over there, when there's no concern about transferring the Klei Bayis erroneously, you should agree with me that you can transfer from the Chatzar to the Mavi without an Erev. If it is Klei Chatzar that you're doing. V'amar Rabbanan, Rabbanan respond, no, Shtei Rishiyah is saying that the Chatzar and the Mavi are regarded as separate types of Rishiyahs, as we explained earlier, because the Mavi is an access area, it's not a residential area, it's not connected to the homes. So you cannot transfer a Kli Chatzar to a Mavi. It's a different type of rishus. So at this point, we really don't have a clear raya to any shita. Right? We had this machlekes, according to Reb Shimon, who allows free transfer. Is it only when there was no eruv in that chatzah, in which case the klei bayis are not found in the chatzah? And there's no room for confusion, or perhaps, as Shmuel and Rabbi Yechon told us, even when there's an eruv, and the klei bayis are sitting in the chatzah, we're not concerned that if we allow transfer in the klei chatzah, he's going to, by mistake, do the same to the klei bayis. And we don't really have it right. Says the Gemara, Omar Ma, we just learned, b'mavei aser, that when there was no shita mavos, you cannot transfer in the mavi. The Gemara figured at this point that you can't even carry throughout the mavi. So let's say a kli was in the mavi during the hashmashes, you cannot transfer inside that mavi. Why? Because there was no shita mavos in that mavi. Leva misayeli Reb Zera Marav. Perhaps this is a riot to Reb Zera, who told us the name of Rav. The Omer Reb Zera Marav, mavi shlein shtat for boy. A mavi which does not have shita mavos, a metalton boy el b'dal damas. We regard it like a carmelist, and you're limited to 4 amis. Why? The Farshim explained because a mavi which would like to use lechi v'koira needs to be a populated mavi. As the Rashi explained, this incomplete enclosure, this partial mechitza lechi v'koira only works when it's an area which is not designated for private use, like a publicly accessed mavi. So if it's publicly accessed, then all it needs is just partial mechitzas to consider it to be enclosed. But a mavi which does not have shita mavos, in which case the members of the chatzah can't carry into the mavi. So it's not a popular area, it's not a populated area, it's not heavily traveled. So since it doesn't really have that traffic, it needs a proper enclosure for it to be considered properly enclosed, and a lecha v'kor is not sufficient. So the shita of Reb Zera Marav was that when it's not a heavily traveled area, there's no shita which allows transfer here, so there's not much traffic here, we consider this lecha v'kor to be unsuitable for enclosure. We consider the mavi to be like exposed and like a carmelist. So you can only carry 4 amis. So that's his chiddush. So perhaps this brayso, which seems to say that when a mavi doesn't have shituf, you cannot even carry within the mavi, that seems to be a right to that sheet. Says no, ema ulemavi aser. What the brayso means to say is that you can't transfer to the mavi, from the chatzah to the mavi. Because, as we explained, the mavi and the chatzah are 2 different types of areas. But something which was in the mavi during the hashmashes can be transferred throughout the mavi without any concern. Says if that's the case, hainu reisha, then the brayso already told us that you can't transfer from the chatzah to the mavi. Why does the brayso repeat ubemavi aser if it wasn't coming to teach us this halacha? Says no, they're both speaking about the same thing, transferring from the chatzah to the mavi. Why is the brayso repeating itself? Mishnah Yisrael is tzrichle. The brayso need to give that repetition. Why? Perhaps I would think, the Reb Shimon. You know when the Chacham disagree with Reb Shimon, you know when they hold that you can't transfer from chatzah to mavi? Perhaps it's only when the people in the chatzah made an eruv, in which case the klei habayis are present in the chatzah, and there's room for concern that perhaps he's going to transfer not only the klei chatzah to the mavi, but also the klei habayis to the mavi. So perhaps it's only over there the Chachamim hold don't transfer anything from the chatzah to the mavi. But perhaps in the case where the chatzah does not have an eruv, in which case the klei habayis are not in the chatzah, perhaps they would agree to Reb Shimon that in this case there's no concern of confusion. You can't transfer from the chatzah to the mavi because chatzah and mavi are both outdoor areas that classified as one and the same type of category, and you can transfer kamashmon. That's why the brayso repeats it again, ubemavi aser. So that repetition indicates that look, the Chachamim disagree in all accounts, in all events, meaning whether or not there's a eruv and concerns about klei habayis. That's not the concern here. That's not the isser. The isser is because chatzah and mavi are 2 different types of areas, and therefore even a klei chatzah, according to Chachamim, cannot be transferred freely from the chatzah to the mavi without a shituf, because chatzah is residential, mavi is just an alleyway. It's a different type of rishus. It's like transferring from one rishus to the other. Okay, time for a brief chazar of today's daf. We learned that according to Rameh and the Rabbanon, all these outdoor items, these klei chatzar, can be transferred throughout all the outdoor areas. Gag, chatzar, chsadim, or pesas, according to Rameh, provided that one area isn't 10 tefach higher than the next area. According to Rabbanon, provided he doesn't transfer from his rooftop to his friend's rooftop. According to Reb Shimon, we add Karfiv and Mavi as well to this group. Now, is Reb Shimon speaking even when the Klei HaBayis are to be found out in the Chatzah? According to Rav, no, because we're concerned that he might transfer those Kalim to the Chatzah next door. According to Rav Yechon and Shmuel, we're not concerned, and even in that case, when they made an Erev which allows them to transfer their Klei HaBayis into their Chatzah, we still allow him to transfer his Klei Chatzah to the Chatzah next door without any concern.